So we've got level. We're all good. Audio's good. And oh yeah, we're there. We're there. G'day fuckers, how are we on this beautiful Sunday 1 of October, post grand final day and NRL grand final day. This is Mastering Music, Mastering Life. I'm Tony Jack the Bear Man's your host. I'm here at live at Deluxe Mastering Studios in Melbourne, Australia, the world's most livable city. And I'm absolutely delighted to have as my guest today, Mr. Tim Rogers. Timbo.
Hello, mate.
Hello, buddy.
It's been too long.
It's been 10 years. Okay. Last time we saw each other in person was after you released Luxury of Hysteria that I had the pleasure of mastering. It was you, yourself, myself, and one Jimmy Marudas.
Oh, dear Jimmy.
Yeah, how good is he?
Very happy today, I think.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. On that, I think APRA put on the evening, and we had the thing where you spoke about the writing.
Oh, at Bennett's Lane.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that's right.
And then Jimmy spoke about the recording production element of it, and then I just kind of was the comedy relief at the end.
That's interesting. It's I was about to remark it's possibly the first time that you've seen me without a bottle in me.
Yeah,
which is interesting, isn't it? Alarming how calm I am.
Yeah. and not only that, but it's also, as I recall, it's a year to the day that you guys busted the cherry at the Croxton Park. Exactly a year to the day you played your first gig down there.
Yeah, we'd hear in the months preceding us playing that show the history of it. I mean, I didn't have any history there, and walking into a place that has someone else's history. And I thought about that a bit. Even I was doing an interview with Eddie Maguire on Triple M, and he was talking, sort of rattling about the Croxton to me, and so walking into someone's history, and that made me feel a little, gee, we're the band to be doing this. But then we've been sort of walking in other people's shadows for so long that it felt appropriate for us to appropriate others' history. You used to go there a lot?
Well, as an underage kid, yes, I did. Yeah, because I had friends that grew up in Thornbury, so we used to go and hang out there all the time. So yeah, I was an underage attendee of the old the Crocs Rocks. Yeah,
we that night I remember was possibly the last time that we'll ever say, "Bugger everyone, we're going to play 7 songs from our just recorded new record." And about 2 songs in, Dave and I gave a look at each other like, "Oh, this is a mistake." We, scatter some new songs around, but I think that was the last time that we took an audience for granted, which happens sometimes, and that was another little reminder.
Yeah.
So
you live and learn. So listen, you're doing this thing. It's the detouring tour, and you've done a detour here, and this is the book that you've released. As I mentioned to you just before we went on air, this is the 14th book in my 54 years I've tried to read.
Yeah, but the ones that you have read before were
Cat in the Hat,
the Bible, Ulysses, Finnegan's Wake, all the difficult
ones. Exactly. And so I'm about 2 chapters in, and I've got to say, damn you, Tim Rogers, and your fucking impressive lexicon, because I shit you not, every 3 paragraphs on average, I had to stop and fucking Google meaning of this word, because your turn of phrase is so fucking beautiful, man, and your vocabulary is so. But I've got to tell you, there is one word that I've learned from you that will become part of my vernacular, and that's bon vivant.
Well,
I love it.
It's I got described by Shane O'Mara. Shane was asked in an interview recently, and they said, "Can we give you some names and a 1-phrase description of them?" And he described me as a bon vivant, which I took as a great compliment, because I actually think that I do walk around rather heavily, and if I can, and the bon vivant is one who views the world as an opportunity, is an opportunist, but likes to spread joy. And I took that as a great compliment, because Shane's seen me at my worst, and if he can glean me at my best, then I feel good about that. Hopefully it's more than just wearing a scarf on a sunny day.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we should start maybe the Confederacy of Bon Vivants, and have monthly get-togethers at fine dining establishments.
It would be so perfumed. You always smelt great. Tom. It's because I guess we both started recording, and I was trying to recall when menus in recording studios, well, actually when there were menus, because it was always just pizza and beer and whiskey and speed, but when there were menus started appearing, I reckon it was about 95.
Yeah.
And vague nutrition.
Yeah.
to the point that when we started recording overseas, and the menu was probably larger than the manual for whatever desk we were recording.
Yeah.
I don't know quite how we got there, but
We did.
we did. But no, your studio's always smelt great, and that's impressive.
Well, thanks, mate. Vibe. It's all about Marbo and the vibe. Marbo and the vibe, my friend. So, I was hoping. I know you've only got a shortish amount of time, so I want to try and make the most of it and get balls deep with you, if that's all right.
Tony, I'm blushing.
Quick, get the lube. So one of the things. Okay, so one of the things as part of this podcast for me, and that's near and dear to me, is the aspect of mental health in our industry, amongst musicians and artists, creatives, where we have about the national average is about 1 in 4, and our community scene is about 1 in 3. We have a disproportionately high amount of people who struggle with substance abuse and mental health. And so part of this podcast is, as I mentioned to you, I want to get some people on to share their story and hopefully be as open as they can. And because I think when people see others who have profile or who are known, if you will, and they get to see a human side behind them, I think that gives people more hope, I guess, to know that you can feel very alone when you're feeling in the depths of depression or anxiety. And I think when people come out and talk about more and more open about it, I think that's very helpful. So
it can be, yeah. I know it has for me. It was actually my old man, after years of feeling quite unbalanced, and one time I was just crying on the ground, and he was home for the first time in a bit, and said, what the fuck's the matter with you? And I finally thought, I'm going to tell him what's going on, and I told him, and he nodded his head and said, yeah, I feel a bit like that too sometimes. Yeah, particularly as a kid, and then walked away. And in his very sage way of imparting information, I even felt a little lighter then. I mean, I was only 19, I guess, at the time. So I understand what you're talking about. I guess I don't wonder a lot because I try not to be didactic or espouse much because it's just a day-to-day thing for myself. But wonder whether people who struggle a bit are attracted to the arts, or whether the arts takes wonderful symmetrical beings and turns them a bit askew. I'm not sure quite where that goes. I think maybe a bit of that and a bit of that.
Yeah. Well, here's another book that I still have to read. Tom Larkin, thank you for the book.
Tommy Larkin? You made a Tommy Larkins?
He's a top mate of the family.
Diamond geezer.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
Isn't he? And he's another guy who also is really, he was on the project recently talking about, this is when after Chester from...
I saw the one he did after Chris Cornell passed away, and I wanted to call Tommy. I haven't spoken to him in a while, and because, we toured with Soundgarden quite a lot and have these memories of Chris, and they were so homey.
What were your memories of him? How do you remember him?
Well, my favourite memory is he asked me to join Soundgarden on their bus for a leg, and it was just this big driving leg, and I hero worship those guys completely. We all did. Yeah. They were big brothers really for a couple of years, and I just drank and smoked a lot, particularly with Matt and Ben, and Chris was very quiet on the bus, just very watchful. He'd cut off his hair just a couple of months before, and so his face, that beautiful, very feline almost face, he was a very pretty man, was on full display, and he just gave this bemused smile a lot. I've read that people who were friends with Jim Morrison used to say, what's your prescient memory of Jim? And they'd say that he'd had this bemused smile, this quizzical little smile, and Chris had that as well. But I passed out in the back lounge, or went to sleep, whatever, and woke up in the morning, and Chris was sitting on the opposite bench with his shirt off, and was just looking at me as I woke up. And I thought, oh, hello, impossibly handsome Chris. How are you? Yeah. And he said, yeah, I'm good, Tim. And the bus is trundling on. I said, what you doing? I said, nothing.
Yeah.
So I sat up and said, you want a beer, Chris? And he said, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
Just sitting there completely peaceful. And
Yeah.
then that night, playing in front of a hell of a lot of people and belting it out. Very quiet guy. We were friends with his wife at the time, Susan, as well, who was their manager. And we'd have barbecues and
Cookouts, as they call them.
Cookouts and very, very beautiful, very pleasant memories. And so, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess you're lucky you got to know him and get to be close with him and get to actually, as I said before, so characters who you are and reputations, what people think you are, and how people's thoughts can be very skewed from the actual reality of who these people are.
I was reading something that a friend wrote about a documentary on the Seattle music scene in the late 80s, a documentary called Hype that came out. And one thing that a lot of the people from that region, up Oregon and Washington State, while we feel that we've got a lot of friends up there, is because we've got a very compatible sense of humour. And Soundgarden were a band at the time who were extraordinarily funny people and really smart.
Yeah.
Really smart. I guess you never know what's going on. I don't know the circumstances of Chris or of Mr. Bennington or.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It's a tricky one. It's an interesting one. I mean, I don't know. And I think usually people who seem to be the happiest, usually for the most part, have a lot of stuff that's going on in there, and that's been my experience with people who are happiest on the outside usually have more going on the inside. That's been my experience.
I kind of watch for that these days. Well, she's speaking about Tom, Phil Knight, who's a guitarist, and she does an amazing podcast and series about
what's wrong with Phil today.
Dealing with particularly anxiety. And I haven't seen Phil in a long time, but remember him as being very retiring, very quiet, but would have bursts of energy. And to tell you the truth, I'm a little scared at times to listen regularly to that show because, as someone who deals with it, sometimes I can't be around people who are experiencing that or listen to experiences of that.
Yeah.
William Styron, an American writer who started the Paris Review with George Plimpton in about 1952, wrote an incredible book about a very bleak, depressive episode in his life. And I've been looking for it for ages, and I found it in Central Park Strand bookstore in New York the other month and bought it. And as I read it in Central Park, I'm like, wow, I've been looking for Bill Styron's book for ages, and I got that buzzing. I thought, and closed the book and put it in my backpack, and I haven't been able to open it for months. And then the other night thought, I'm in a safe place now, so I was able to read it.
Yeah.
So I really can go off on tangents, can't I?
No, it's fine. That's fine. I mean, someone the other day said to me, so how well, getting the book, they're saying preparing. So have you got all your questions lined up? I said, I never do a list of questions on a fucking podcast. I said, mate, because I just want the conversation to be organic and just.
It's a pretty good idea, isn't it?
Two blokes just having a fucking rave and let it go where it goes, so long as we're just having an honest chat, because I think you've done your fair share of contrived fucking rock and roll Q&A.
I am contrived rock and roll. I had to do. I was guesting Miff Warhurst's program on Double J a couple of months ago, and
she's a chick. I'd love to get her on. Can you get into her ear for me?
Sure. She's a good mate.
I'm a big fan of hers. Anyway,
she's again smart, funny, and I was interviewing Briggs. Adam on Friday, and
he's a legend.
Well, you get to we had, I know what amount of time we had. We had 15 minutes, and I'd just flown back from New York a couple of days before. I was a little rattled, and I know I'm interviewing this guy, smartest guy in the room, funny, empathetic, brilliant lyric writer, that whole thing. But I had my little guide of questions there because he's made his time to get in there, and I wanted to respect that, and of course didn't look at the page once, so I guess that's a good sign.
Yeah.
It's actually started off with talking about production, which was fascinating because my method of production is to turn up and try not to pretend how little I know. I mean, we've mastered records together. You know. What do you think of that, Tim?
Yeah. Well, my motto's been I'll never be able to dazzle you with brilliance. I'll baffle you with bullshit. And it's 30 years.
I trusted you.
Actually, speaking of Jimmy, I'll tell you that Jimmy's just alone, and Jimmy's doing well these days. You know, I actually got him in the industry.
I know that. That's right.
It's my fault.
Jimmy Marutis, producer extraordinaire.
I wish you'd seen him the first time I met him. I'll never forget it. He rocked up to this music expo that I was Sing Sing had a stand there, and I was there on the stand, and Jimmy rocks up in a lovely knit, sort of this lovely thick knit, looks like almost like a skipper's fucking V-neck jumper, tie, clipboard with his CV in there. Big smile. It's cute as a button. It's just the funniest thing I've ever seen.
He still is as cute as a button,
isn't he?
His politeness and his efficiency, but which is not to say he's not differential. Well, he is opinionated, but delivers it with such grace and charm. You have trained him well, Zen Master, and I get a lot from him. We actually were going to work together this year, making a record, and Jim had to make the call. He wrote to me and said, I haven't got the time. No, you haven't allowed the time to do this properly. I think I'm paraphrasing, you're making a mistake doing it this way. If you want to get some money and time to do this record properly, I can do it. But you essentially you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
So I said, well, Jim, I haven't got the time or the money. I'm going to go this alone without you. I love you, but gee, isn't that a way of dealing with the situation? He just said, I can't do this properly, and let me know.
Well, I think it's hard to be brutally honest with people. It's again, we're talking about people pleasing before. So many of us, myself included, have a tendency to want to please. And that can actually be to your detriment.
It can backfire,
Yeah, and I think it's important that we all have boundaries and are able to kind of just stick to our guns if we really believe that what we're saying is true. Now, the other person, I guess they take it on board. That's great. If not, the other option is you go down a potentially slippery slope.
It's slippery. Yeah. So when I was speaking to a fella at footy practice this morning, and he's not doing too well, and he asked me about he said, "Oh, Tim, you wouldn't know about that. I mean, rock and roll life." And I said, "Oh, give me a call sometime. I'll take you out for a cup of tea."
Yeah.
So I thought, taking him out, hey, let's go drinking for 3 days isn't going to be good for him. And we got into this talk about some dark times, and it starts to remind me that at the time, you're feeling kind of a certain way, whatever you're getting into, but you don't quite realise how really dark it is.
Yeah.
And just driving here along the highway, and it's got these little shutters, about shit we used to do and hopefully won't do again, and just how bulletproof you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, speaking on this issue of honesty, I was actually impressed, I guess, when I saw a little interview of you on The Mix a couple of weeks ago on that ABC show. It's called The Mix. It's an arts, cultural show.
Genre, yeah.
Yeah. And we spoke a bit about the book, and there was that bit where we had to have the conversation with your daughter, Ruby, about disclosure on certain things about the book, and how you sat her down and said, hey, listen, I'm writing a book and there's certain things, and I think your daughter responded with, yeah, Dad, I know, to whatever you were going to talk about.
Well, it was because it's not an autobiography and it's not a tell-all, and there's a lot of stuff in there that's, if I wanted to be sensationalist or if I wanted to prove something, then I could have done it a different way. But my editor and the publishing company said, we don't want you to do that if that's not what you want to do. And so my talk with my daughter was, she asked about it, and I said, well, darling, it's not an autobiography. It's not really, I was born
full
here.
Confessional or stuff.
No. I mean, if people want stories, titillating stories, drug things, rooting things, drinking things, then, if someone buys me a coffee or buys me a drink, I'll tell them. And so I wanted to write something that was different, modelled on a couple of essay writers that I like very much. And it's because I felt like I had nothing really to prove apart from that hopefully I can write something of a little bit of beauty and a little bit of peace, and to write long. And so I just started explaining that to her. And Tex and I had this talk a couple of years ago when we both said, no, there's no way we'd ever write a book. And Perko said, well, I've got to wait until my kids grow up before I ever write something. And I guess at a certain point, you just thought, well, my kids know me, you know. But I did need to speak with Ruby about it. One, I said, well, you know, if you want to read it one day, fine, but it'll just be like, oh, Dad's drunk again and he's talking at me. That's what it reads like. So I said, darling, let's do Anna Karenina instead, or do you know, read Flaubert.
Where did you find your love for books and literature? Because it's obvious that you've devoured loads of books over the years. You obviously.
Well, I don't reckon. I don't think I read a book for 20 years. I was a literature student in university and a law student, and I blamed getting sick on that intense kind of education. It just flew me off, and I wasn't well, and blamed literature and study for that, for exacerbating what I was going through. And so, you know, worked in a pizza shop, worked in a record store, got in a band, and probably didn't read for 20 years. And then maybe it was 7 or 8 years ago, I was reading Crime and Punishment, the Fyodor Dostoevsky book, Russian novel, on a tour bus, and half an hour in and trying to remember characters' names, and I put my head up and thought, hey, why do I feel peaceful and contributive? And Rusty and I think we were in the States somewhere, went out for drinking that night, and I felt the parameters of what I could talk about open a little bit, and it wasn't anything that we were ingesting or drinking. And since then, it was only 7 or 8 years ago. And now, if I'm feeling uptight, if I'm feeling bad, I'll delve into either fiction or non-fiction essays, and stay off the bloody computer and stay away from telephones.
Yeah,
I think they were really something about the light. Social media.
Yeah.
It's why I don't invest in social media much. I'm told it's unavoidable making music, and you need to use it to promote your music, which I do. But I find going down that wormhole, as everyone knows, I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said a million times before, but you don't read long and looking for quick fixes of. There's a lot of information, but not a lot of knowledge
and substance.
Yeah, and while there's so much great stuff out there, I mean, you know, writers. Helen Razor. I read like an acolyte, even though she completely baffles me. But I want to tap into to that wonderful brain, and it's accessing that stuff is through most often through social media. But
do you take care of your own, or will someone else do it on your behalf?
I get asked by two people who operate it. If everything's, you know, they say, oh, do you mind if we do this? And I'll say yes and no. But I find and you know, particularly tweeting, and there are a lot of people who are great at it, really, really wonderful at it, but I don't have an opinion on much.
Yeah.
And if someone approaches me, and because of the way I conduct my life, you know, I'll meet strangers, and if somebody wants to ask something, I think one-on-one's better, just for me.
Yeah, I think it's something more personal than that, you know. But I guess the flip side of that pancake, I guess, is just the accessibility. Cause
there are pancakes?
There are. Not here, not now, but we can organise them. There's the accessibility. I think for me, I just love the idea now that, you know, when I was a young pup and I wanted to sort of get into the studio world, you know, I have to write a letter and send it off to go to New York. So, you know, 5 to 7 days. If you're lucky, if it gets there, then if they get it, they open it, and so it could be up to a month to get a response if you're lucky. Whereas now it's just like, well, there he is, and it may not be them officially running; it could be someone on their behalf. But nonetheless, I like the idea of.
I understand how it's necessary. I like the month wait, and I still write letters to my partner, and she lives 200 metres up the road. When I'm doing this theatre run at the moment, and on stage there are swathes of time where it's silent, and I'm writing letters to my daughter at the moment. But if it's for work stuff, sure. I mean, hey, you've got to go and do a tour in the States in 2 weeks, and it's invaluable.
Yeah.
Really wonderful stuff. But I guess we started working. Did you tour a lot? No,
no. Just studio. I didn't tour. No, I never.
Touring with the Book of Lies and asking questions. I mean, you did it. Henry Rollins does incredible talks. I love Henry.
Yeah, so much. Do I. Big fan.
So hard. His radio show is just an essential around my apartment. I was about to say around the Rogers household, but it's me and a kettle.
Yeah.
And he's when he's talking to kids, and that you did have to use maps, and you'd get lost, and you'd have to get manuals for the truck would break down.
Yeah.
I wish I still had a photo. I think Rusty might have it where I think we're near Altamont in California, and our truck broke down, and there's myself and I think Ben, maybe from Soundgarden, bass player, and we've got Budweiser cans, and our van broke down, and it didn't matter for us. We were a little shit-kicking Australian band, but they needed to get to San Diego or wherever to play in front of 20,000 people. I'm not a Luddite. I still, use my telephone and.
Yeah. You're not a complete Luddite.
Not a complete one. I haven't progressed beyond shoelaces. And I look up things. I mean, I look up social media. I check up. I'm tempted to check up on my kid, but I don't want to be shocked. So I call. And her mum, I like to, she's some wonderfully creative woman, and I read up on her. It's not in a stalking way, but almost because I know I can't talk to them every day. If I find out what they're doing, and Mum's a film devotee, and I read what they're going to see at the film festivals around New York. So there's wonderful little examples like that. I did use a coffee application in Geelong the other day.
Oh yeah, go on.
For shame. But okay, this is the one I've become. I was doing a theatre run in Geelong, and I thought, I really would like a coffee to go with this cigarette this morning.
Yeah.
And so found out there's a coffee application, and I used it, and it worked. I felt like I'd
Was it good coffee?
Oh, it was dynamite. The little green something in Geelong, it was great, and the gentleman served me had a beard, and it was the perfect kind of the modern coffee experience.
Yeah.
And I kind of hated myself, and I loved it myself as well. And
no, I can't. I'm past your coffee. We love coffee around here. It's a shame you didn't let me squeeze one out for you, mate. Would have been a religious experience for you.
Well, here's the silly thing. I mean, as someone who used to, with druggy stuff, I even have to watch coffee. So I have a couple of doubles in the morning and one in the afternoon. But the other day I had a lot of coffee before a theatre show, and I was getting that kind of.
The jitters.
Oh yeah, it's, I sort of, you can do it, the stupid and right way, and take drugs for this.
Well, here's a little hint. Have you heard of bulletproof coffee? It used to be called Fat Black back in the day. I think Minnesota in the 30s. They used to do a thing called a Fat Black, which is now being rebranded by a guy called Dave Asprey, called Bulletproof, which is coffee. And two of the kids had one today with grass-fed unsalted butter. So what it does, it slows down the caffeine intake. It's good for your brain,
Who are you people?
And you don't get the and for those who get the caffeine, come down, completely gone.
Unbelievable.
Tablespoon of grass-fed unsalted butter in your coffee, mate. Give it a go.
But how can I ask for that in the morning? Can I?
Yeah.
I ordered a double and a half espresso, 3/4 full, and I was hoping that no one was around.
Yeah.
Comme ci, comme ça.
Yeah.
My daughter sent me a photo. I said, "Dad, they've got your coffee in." She's still got an Australian accent when she talks to me. Dad, they've got your coffee in them in New York. They've got flat whites here because, of course, we went over there, 30 years ago, 25 years ago. Flat white, please. What? Long black. What? They've caught up. There's like Melbourne-style cafes there now.
Is that right? Well, Armageddon is here.
There wasn't. Yeah.
It has arrived, Tim Rogers.
Oh, gee, it's.
Hey, we've got. Is it okay? We got a question from one of our.
Sure.
So we. Okay, so from Kerry Morgan. Was there a moment you realised you were now being
not good looking
a musician rather than chasing that dream? And was there a tangible reason, like enough money for rent, or was it a gradual shift primarily in your self-perception? Ooh.
Good question. A really good question. It wasn't a money thing. For the first 6 years of the band, it was when we were on tour. We had $20 a day, and that was great. And you get drinks for free and all that. But I think it was when other musicians started regarding. I remember speaking to Kim Salmon in about '94, and he talked to me as if, I put that guy on such a pedestal that. But he talked to me about guitars and amps and records and meeting Tex for the first time, and I had to do an interview with him, and he like, "Oh, sit here, buddy," and on an Ansett flight at the time, and meeting the guys from the Hard-Ons was massive for me. Ray and Blackie and Kesh, and them talking to. So I was more meeting other musicians and heroes, and them talking to you as if you were, one of them, a peer, which was huge, and then going from there, and you're touring with Rocket from the Crypt through Europe, and getting into stupid shit with Noel and Liam in Japan, and
he's coming out. Noel's coming out.
Liam's coming out.
Liam's coming out.
Yeah, I hope we meet up. They were the funniest people to tour with ever, and it was a particularly heady time for them. But they were really generous and really sweet. And unfortunately, Liam headbutted a guy in Brisbane as the tour started, and it was this big security logistical nightmare because we were having so much fun in Japan. People in bands who are generally funny and intelligent, and they're not all, of course, but that whole paradigm about the rock and roll,
the cliche around, everyone's like Keith Moon,
gorgeous boy he was. Yes, I remember when he dressed up like Hitler and we went through Soho together. I always thought that being in a rock band, you should be trying to subvert paradigms and not working with shibboleths and norms and that mythology, and trying to just invent something new. And I haven't quite worked it out, and as a band we probably haven't worked it quite out, but we think that a little bit of poncery and a little bit of thuggery and will get you going all right. I mean, you and my guys, do you know those guys at all?
Well, I know Davey. I had Davey in here doing.
Isn't he a prat?
I know. I love him to death.
He's incredible.
He's fucking awesome.
He used to act too like that all the time.
Yeah. No, he's beautiful, and we had a really good chat, and it was awesome. This was in a previous incarnation of my podcast, but no, he was a delight, man. And I've done a couple of little bits and bobs over the years for him, and he's one of the most extraordinary talented guitarists out there. I mean, maybe. I don't know, prodigy is maybe too much of a superlative, but fuck, if he's not, he's pretty fucking close.
He works really, really hard, and he tolerates a lot. I mean, I guess he joined the band when he was 18, and I called his parents and said, "Oh, is it okay if I take Davey on tour?" And I was touring with this band Twin Set at the time, and we used to get up to a lot of mischief. And his parents said, "Take him. Look at him. What else do you think he's going to do? Take him." Mm-hmm. And until he was probably about 33, he'd just nod, and because he'd get a lot of loudmouths kind of, you're not this, and you're doing this, and blah, 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 blah. And he'd nod. So he probably couldn't hear him. He's losing his hearing in one ear. Hopefully that stops. And he'd be very tolerant of it. And I think a couple of years ago, he decided to put his foot down and thought,
I'm fucking
I'm
a man
pretty
now.
good. I'm pretty good,
yeah.
and I do hope he moves. I hope he still stays in the band and we still remain best friends. But I think I can feel him moving further into production and
Other pursuits.
I hope that's the way he goes because he's got such an ear and a soul for it.
Hmm. What are plans for the band? What at this stage you got? You writing songs? You want to go in the studio? Another tour? Any?
Well, we've got. I think really what we do as a band is make sure that our friendship's number one. We do have ambitions, which tend to not really conflate with that less and less people are interested. And I guess we're regarded, maybe rightly, as a bit of a heritage thing, that and our best days are behind us. But we can't be conscious of that when we're looning around and about to go on stage. I think the last tour we did with the Hoodoo Gurus, we were playing some of our best shows ever. I got asked to be involved with Brisbane with the Queensland Ballet. The artist David Bromley and his wife Yugi asked me to write music for this conceptual piece that they're doing with the Queensland Ballet, and I think I'm actually going to ask the band to do it. The English band The Fall did a ballet once, Pink Floyd did a ballet once, and I think I want the band to do it because we're ready to do something.
Do you feel also maybe because it's do you find you work better in a collaborative situation?
I do now, yeah. Even writing the book, I was with my agent and editor Melanie Ostell the whole time. Actually, I am, and also I wouldn't work and I wouldn't go into it unless someone like Andy Kent, who's you're my bass player and my manager, would say you need to go because you're completely broken, you owe this, and so he says go out and tour. And then I think, well, it's a job, great.
Yeah.
I love getting work, you know.
Yeah, sure.
And so I can feel the band get restless. You know, we all start calling each other, oh, let's go out drinking. And so we do. And then 3 days later say, oh, shouldn't we be a band, you know?
Yeah.
So, and when you're with your best friends and you feel vital. And the thing that keeps us vital is that particularly Rusty, Andy and Davey are so voracious about what they listen to. You know, Andy will be listening to nothing but bebop, jazz or fusion, and Rusty's collecting Korean doo-wop records, and Davey's off somewhere in space with Jeff Lynne and Roy Wood.
And what you're listening to, Nick Lowe?
Well, I love Nick.
Yeah.
I played shows with Nick, you know.
Really?
And his manager came and invited me into his dressing room. It was about 1998. And he stood on my, hello, Tim. How you doing? Oh, hello, Nick. And he said, oh, yeah, let's not talk about that. And he said, Tim, are you into cricket? And I said, yeah, I played some pretty high-grade cricket in Adelaide as a kid. And he said, well, the only reason I'm touring Australia is because my tour manager said I could go to Singapore to watch the MCC. What? It's just, I'm talking to Nick Lowe about cricket.
Yeah. Well, it's British. It's a very British thing. It is cricket.
Very British. And
how do you think we're going to go on how do you think we're going to go on the Ashes?
I haven't surveyed the form, but if they're sprightly fast bowlers keep whacking people outside pubs. Who was it? Stokes, was it?
Oh yeah. There he was allegedly seen to be getting involved.
Allegedly on film.
On film, yeah, striking a couple of blokes. Won 15 times apparently. Got 15. He got 15 good ones in.
You used to box, didn't you? Did a bit of boxing training.
Yeah, I've dabbled in, some bits and pieces.
The only time I was speaking about it with my dad yesterday about this pub fight. The only time I've been close to pub fighting, and then Dad said, "Oh, what about Mark Holden in Adelaide Airport?" I said, "Dad, I never hit him. Was when I was doing some boxing training a couple of years ago. You know, the mix of boxing training, meth and drinking is
imbibing in boxing.
Yeah, because you think you're
invincible,
and then
well,
I'm 74 kilos. It's not going to happen.
Well, I know. I've always liked the expression of the ultimate warrior is one who will walk through 10,000 battles, never needing to draw his sword. So, if you can disarm somebody with a smile and a good energy and a relaxed state of being, I think, or the prevention better than cure. I think that's always the best way to go.
Tone, not for the first time. I learn from you. I come to you with a job, and I come away with knowledge. Look, I got to agree. I mean, even just where I live in St Kilda, I just think at certain times nothing good's going to happen here. Let's all come back to my place and I'll slice you some Madeira cake.
Isn't it funny how sometimes you get a sense of that? I mean, I don't know about you, but I know I've been to places way before anything goes down, and I just had this, and everything is fine, but just, and it's not some kind of, anxiety and overdrive, just this feeling. And sure enough, there's, so I think it's always best to, get out of those situations wherever possible. I fucking hate violence, Tim Rogers. I fucking hate it with a passion.
Well, when you're privy to it, it hurts, and it really hurts people. No, I don't like being around it at all. And I'm actually despite all appearances, quite a violent person. I recognise them, or just angry.
Yeah.
So extracting that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
A really good idea.
Well, I promise to be nice around you, Tim. Always. I'll just be a good bon vivant.
Bon vivant. Well, you can join the International Gentlemen's Club. It's we convene in Madrid, in Dublin, in Pavia, which is a town just outside Milan.
Great.
And in New York. There's 5 gentlemen, 5 very good friends of mine, and
You're in.
You're in.
I can't wait. I'm also apparently a member of the Good Guy Network. Apparently, there's a thing called the Good Guy Network. It's me and Tim Gillis, who used to own Blue Meanie Studios, where Rage Against the Machine actually recorded their first record. And he's now living in Australia, down in Launceston, living just a nice, more quieter life down there with his Australian wife.
On the good paddock?
Yes, very, very much so. I'm going down to see him actually later in the month. So I'm looking forward to catching up with him. But yeah, he derived this into Good Guy Network, and he inducted me into that a couple of years ago, which I was very, very happy about. Does
one just need to perennially be a good guy?
Well,
nice fella.
I guess other people make those decisions. You can't go around and profess to be a good guy.
No, you really can't.
I don't think it's not a good guy thing to do.
I was watching a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode at 5 this morning, and Larry Dave was like, "Yeah, I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy." That sort of, I'm a good guy. I wasn't an arsehole today. Yeah, you have to kind of go a little further,
Yeah. Actually, although the again, another pancake I want to flip for you, if I may. Actually, this one will be a pikelet. We'll flip a pikelet.
I love a pikelet.
Just a a bit of diversity.
Yeah.
The flip side to that is that beautiful saying, which I don't think I know the exact. I'm paraphrasing, but close enough. The wonderful Groucho Marx.
You don't want to join a club.
I refuse to be a member of a club that will accept me as one of its members.
I used that in the supermarket when someone said, "Do you have their reward scheme?" And I used that, and the poor young lady was bewildered, and then I tried to make up for it. "Oh, darling, don't worry about me. I've had a brain tumor." I was just digging the whole for And at my local Coles, when you're on tour all the time, being at home is such a premium.
Yeah.
My partner Rosemary, who's works around St Kilda, and she's said, "Darling, you've only really been home 80 days this year," and bonus, that's 80 days. But I'm really noticing what's going on at my local shopping centre. So at the Coles, they have staff at Coles giving you a basket, and this morning I woke up, I was sober, and a great coffee without unpasteurised bloody butter in it. Yeah. Hipper than hip. And the lady gave me a basket, and so I did the full bow, "Madam." And I looked up, and of course she gave me this quizzical look. "Oh, is this guy taking the piss or whatever?" And I try and be a little cognizant, a little aware of because Rosemary's very much the same, that when we step out into the world, we treat it a bit like a performance, and we'd like everyone to feel good and spread that bon vivacity. But it can, we're aware that it can look like that you're being
taking the piss or just
condescending, maybe.
Yeah, condescending. Yeah.
So I tell you, that we know the situations. It's 3 a.m. at the in some club in Richmond, and I think I tone it down then.
Yeah, I think it's probably wise.
No matter what's going on.
I had a similar experience to what you're talking about, where there's this I was over in Toronto in Canada, and I got to befriend this older gentleman. He was outrageously camp and was a student of Laurence Olivier.
Laddie.
Yes, and I remember one day, similar to what you're doing, but I was being a little bit piss taking the jest, and I remember I'd see him and I'd call him like thespian.
Yeah.
Right? And at the time I was doing a radio show, and this guy just amazing fucking wit, like within a nanosecond comes back with broadcaster. That was his fuck you. I mean, what a beautiful response.
Right.
Yeah. One of the wittiest people and most intelligent people I've ever met.
And Toronto's an incredible town, huh?
It is. Very much like Melbourne, I found.
You're not the first one to say that.
Yeah.
It's,
the grid formation of the downtown, they've got those red streetcars that look like our trams. I mean, and I think Canadians, on the whole, I think we relate to. I think Australians and Canadians relate better than
Americans with
Americans.
Humor. Americans with humour.
Americans with humour, yeah.
Stronger beer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before talking about up in the Pacific Northwest, I haven't done an exit poll or anything, but do find this really compatible sense of humour. Maybe it's the climate. I don't know what it is, but
well, I think up west it's a bit more, not quite as cold. I mean, Toronto's, but it was fucking hot too, man. Summer in Toronto,
really,
like 40-degree fucking like bullshit, and humidity because they're right on the lake there, on Lake Ontario, and they get this fuck off humidity in the summer. It's bullshit.
What are we going to wear?
How did I get by?
Well, that's why, Tone, the seersucker suit, which is this white flannel, but I do get asked, why do you overdress? And I think that you get thrown out of less clubs. But here's my story why I dress up. One, difficult child. No, I did not have a difficult childhood, but I was going from Dublin to London on a British Airways flight, and I was there with my friend Eric, and I dressed in a powder blue 3-piece suit that I bought in Dublin 3 days before. And he said, "Tim, why when you get on a plane, why you always got to dress up? We're just going on it's just an hour-and-a-half flight. What the hell are you doing?" I said, "Eric, watch this and learn." And so I was checking the British Airways, and an older lady behind the counter, she's maybe in her late 50s, early 60s, and said, "Well, sir, you're going to have to pay extra for the guitar and the extra luggage." And I just leaned a little over, trying not to be too creepy, and said, "Madam, couldn't I just take you out for a drink instead?" Thought, have I crossed some boundary? Because she just looked up, looked me up, looked me down, proceeded to do the paperwork, handed me over my boarding pass 1A.
Oh.
Eric was back in 79Q.
Yeah.
And I sat down on my seat in 1A feeling, this is lovely up here. The attendant came over and gave me a glass of champagne at my required time of 10 a.m. Used to be. And he said, "That's from Beverly at the front office."
Well, let me tell you something. There's a great fucking lesson in that, and it's not just even for the dress sense. It's just pure fucking courtesy. I remember once I didn't quite get quite a stellar thing as you. However, it's just amazing how a little bit of kindness to people. Going into Tollery one day, and this girl there, she's fucking frazzled. She'd probably had a cunt of a day, and all I just said was, "Hey, how's your day?" And she just looked up and she said, "You're the first person that asked me that." And then she helped me out with a few little things. I didn't get any champagne or anything like that. But it's amazing how, we forget sometimes our little courtesies and little kindnesses go a long way. And you mentioned in your book about hospitality, I mean, I think all of us that have worked in music or creative, we've done something, whether it's waiting or bar staffing or, I know you're
it's a necessity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a part of the rite of passage, but when you've been in those sort of positions and you develop this empathy and this humility about it. And I find myself when I go to restaurants too, how much I like to acknowledge, because people come and serve you, the waiters. It's humbling. They're coming to fucking serve you. Yes, they're getting paid to do the job, but they're not getting paid to be treated like shit. And it's extraordinary how many times people just always comment, just like, "Oh, you wouldn't believe what we put up in here." And so, be nice to everyone, people, for fuck's sake.
I'd hate to thought that I'm always doing it for a glass.
No. That's just part of who you is.
Seems to be like a social lubricant in a way. I mean, if the idea about paying it forward, and if you're polite. Well, the one thing I learned went with the question that was asked before about being a musician. It's when you can hang out with the crew, and if you notice anyone in a band, a performer, boy, girl, man, woman who treats a crew member, someone who works infinitely harder than you ever will as a musician.
Mm-hmm.
If you look down, talk down, then yeah. And so when
you won't get invited to my party. No.
I think being invited when we were out on tour with the Beast Bourbon and their crew said, you guys are all right. You can come and drink and get stupid with us. And that's when we thought, as you know, crew, first one's in, last one's out.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Bands will quit shows if their sandwiches are curling.
Yeah, and I think also when it comes to just young kids coming through, because I love mentoring kids, and I'll never forget. I know you got to get going, so very, very quick. But great scene in Carlito's Way. I don't know if you remember that movie. Al
Carlito's Way.
He was the gangster that came out of prison, and this young kid come up to him and say, "Hey, Carlito," and he's just saying, "No, fuck off." Long story short, at the end of the movie, he's trying to get away. This young kid who came from the ghetto, who looked up to him, who dismissed, became quite
kingpin.
Yeah. And fucked him over. A couple of bullets. And so again, it doesn't mean you got to be a doormat, be nice to every single fucking person, but just to be nice in general is just, and because everyone starts here, and we move on. We got these kids coming through now, and they're the next wave, and I think guys like us have a role to play in helping them develop.
Well, I think so. Well, I absolutely agree that I was a little concerned and do get concerned from time to time about when I meet some younger musicians, men and women, particularly in the pop kind of sphere. I somehow find myself in those situations from time to time. And when you're talking to someone, they're playing with their phone the whole time, and I guess that they're gramming or tweeting or whatever, and let's say, hey. And then I did a recording session, turn up and play just a little. I actually just did a pick slide on a song by this band Clowns, the hardcore band.
Good guys.
Oh, they're incredible, and they work their asses off. Incredible. They just did this European tour, and I was looking at the dates, and I was just, and they were. I got invited in the studio, and I thought, they're taking the piss or whatever, because I love their records. Love it. I'm Not Right, Bad Blood, and the last one, Lucid Again. They're so fantastic, and I thought they're taking the piss. But I turned up to the studio, and I brought in a slab of beer, and that was just 5 hours of pure joy. Just energy and aggression. I had Hannah, the new bass player. It was her first recording session with them, and it suddenly just they're good and they're out there, and you can't sort of dismay for a generation of musicians thinking, oh, look, they're all just interested in profiling and social media. It's just, you just take people on their merits, who walks through the door, and but gee, if they bring pikelets or pancakes, then
they're in. Mr. Tim Rogers, thank you so much.
Donny Mats.
It's been fucking real. I've really enjoyed this, mate.
You're like Carlito.
Knock it off. Well, we'll have to get you now. Next year in March, I'm planning to. I've been putting these industry panel Q&A things, and hopefully I'll like to invite.
You want me to make the sandwiches?
Oranges, actually. You can be the orange.
Oranges.
Half-time oranges.
Eat your lemons, people. They're good for your liver.
Yeah.
I really think they're the only thing. Lemons are the only thing that keep you going.
But I'd like to do a panel on mental health and industry and just those things. So
look, I know we didn't go into a lot. I get a little.
That's fine.
But gee, I think Tommy and Phil. I'm glad you brought those guys up from Shard. Seems Tom's such an authoritative guy and such an empathetic,
totally
human. And Phil's that song I listened to this afternoon.
Check him out. Yeah. All right, then, my friend. Thanks again.
Time.
It was good having you, buddy. I'll talk to you really soon. All right, then. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Tim Rogers. And you got some shows. Hang on, got some shows coming up. You got shows coming up?
Always.
What's coming up? What's coming up?
I'm on a theatre. I'm doing a theatre run for a couple of months. Paramount in Brisbane. What Rhymes with Cars and Girls, and then I'm doing a solo tour starting late November all through December with Hanny J, the bass player in Clowns, as the act on before me.
Beautiful. All right then. Thanks everyone. And as I always say, please be nice to each other, but more importantly, be nice to yourselves. Love you fuckers. Have a good one. See ya.
So much language.
Naughty language, Mr. Rogers.